Hello, my name is Ainsley from Fairy Tale Vibes here on YouTube. I am also Fairy Tale Vibes on Instagram and TikTok as well. And today we are doing Apple White and Raven Queen Swapped at Birth, the remastered version. So many of you guys know around this time last year, I went viral on both YouTube and TikTok for my Apple White and Raven Queen Swapped at Birth theory. If you didn't know, these girls are from Ever After High. That's what this theory is about. So, and I thought I would do a revised, remastered version, just because in my last YouTube video about this theory, which was where I kind of compiled a bunch of evidence that I had used in my TikToks and put it all together nicely in a little YouTube video for you guys to watch, I now have some different feelings about some of those pieces of evidence, and I have found some better evidence. Also in that original theory, I kind of connected it to Monster High, but I have found some better evidence from just within the Ever After High universe itself. So in this video, I'm really going to be focusing on all the essential evidence for the Swapped at Birth theory that actually takes place in the Ever After High universe, and kind of my revised version of what I really think actually happened, if possibly the Swapped at Birth theory is canon or was supposed to be canon, because we'll never know because Ever After High got canceled. Also, if you're missing Ever After High, I am starting the journey to make my own fantasy-inspired doll brand, so make sure to subscribe here on TikTok and follow me on Instagram and YouTube for more updates about that. Anyway, I have one more thing to say before we dive into this theory, and that is that in my last video that I filmed of this theory, I was able to use some clips from the Ever After High webisodes. However, now I cannot do that because YouTube's completely demonetizing any videos that use any clips from Ever After High or anything, and Mattel may even take the video down. So I'm only going to use little small screenshots. So sorry, because I'm going to have to kind of explain what happens in the video clips since I can't show them to you guys, and that really breaks my heart. But anyway, I'm so excited. I love Ever After High to get into this theory. Okay, so for those of you who may have not seen my other videos, what is the Swapped at Birth theory? It is the theory that Apple White is actually the evil queen's daughter and that Raven Queen is actually Snow White's daughter. Now, the most basic evidence for the theory is how they look. Apple White has naturally blonde hair, and the evil queen in Ever After High has naturally blonde hair. And then, of course, Raven has naturally black hair, and the evil queen and the Snow White has naturally black hair. So the theory is that Apple is actually the evil queen's daughter and Raven is actually Snow White's daughter, and for some nefarious reason, they were swapped at birth. So our first part of this theory is to look at all the clues that genetically Apple should have or was meant to have black hair. And for that, we are first going to look at the Storybook of Legends, which is the first Ever After High book by Shannon Hale, because this book does a great job at telling us that it's very unusual that Apple has blonde hair, and it actually calls this out 3 times. Don't mind that. I think that was the universe confirming that this theory is true. But anyway, let's look at the 3 different times Apple gets called out for having blonde hair. 1, this is when Apple's packing to leave for Ever After High at the beginning of the book and the maids are gossiping about her. One says, "Well, except for the hair, a shame she was born blonde." Apple winced. "I think her blonde hair is even lovelier than her mother's black hair." "How can you? The fairy tale specifies, hair like ebony." This is literally on page 20. This is the very beginning of the book. And straight from the beginning, they're telling us there is something wrong with Apple's hair. Now Apple's hair is brought up again. In this scene, Apple is talking to Baba Yaga. "You don't have black hair," Baba Yaga said suddenly. Apple sighed. "No, I don't. The older generation just couldn't let the blonde hair thing go." "Your mother had black hair. It was a part of the story. Snow White skin, ebony black hair, blood red lips." "I guess when it's my story, that part will change, since I was born a blonde." Baba Yaga leaned forward and said, "I find you extremely disappointing." I know Baba Yaga is technically a villain, but that's a little harsh. She really calls Apple out for not having black hair. And Apple's just a natural blonde. There's nothing she can do about it. I mean, she could dye it, but I think she likes the blonde hair, so she never thought about dyeing it, I guess. Anyway, let's continue. Then the next time the blonde hair is mentioned is when Apple is like looking at herself in the mirror on Legacy Day. You know how there's that mirror, if you've seen the show, where it like shows their future selves? Well, in the book, we get to see what is going on inside Apple's head when she's like seeing her future self on Legacy Day. Apple then looked up at the mirror floating before the podium and watched her reflection transform into a picture of herself years older. She looked so much like her mother, only blonde. Baba Yaga wouldn't approve, but Apple did. Again, they're bringing up the reason that for whatever reason, Baba Yaga doesn't approve of Apple's blonde hair. Why, Baba Yaga? Why? Do you disagree so much with Apple's blonde hair? Okay, now we're going to look at the fact that the evil queen also has naturally blonde hair. And we see that the evil queen has naturally blonde hair in two places, in Dragon Games and in the Class of Classics. So here's a picture from the graphic novel, The Class of Classics. This shows the evil queen when she was younger, and it's hard to tell, but she does have light hair. At first, when I saw this picture, I wasn't sure if it was blonde, but somebody on my TikTok let me know, who has read this graphic novel, that it actually specifies, the Cheshire Cat, Kitty's mom, literally calls this platinum blonde hair. This is supposed to be platinum blonde hair. And then in this clip, it's kind of hard to see from Dragon Games, like they took the time to create a younger character design for the queen, the evil queen, which is only used in one scene and which shows her having blonde hair. Like Snow White's picture in this flashback in Dragon Games, like literally just looks like herself, but like a little younger. Whereas the evil queen, like they took this whole time to create a whole character design. So like in this movie, the evil queen has 3 character designs. She has Mira Shards, the evil queen, and this other younger version of the evil queen, which they took the time to animate with light hair. So the thing is, the books in Ever After High have a slightly different canon from the show. There are things that vary. For example, Cupid can fly in the books, she can't fly in the show. Whatever. But like the very important plot elements like Legacy Day, they stay consistent between the books and the show. So if there is something that is happening in both the books and the show that is consistent, for example, the evil queen having platinum blonde hair, even though her character design in the Class of Classics looks slightly different from the character design in Dragon Games, they still both have platinum blonde hair. That tells me that 2 different character designs were created with platinum blonde hair. Platinum blonde hair is an important plot point, so let's note that in our little brains, right? So to me, the evil queen canonically has platinum blonde hair. Some people may disagree, but the fact that it's in both places that she has platinum blonde hair when she's younger, it doesn't appear that she has roots, it doesn't appear that it's bleach. Where it gets weird is when she's older, she has black hair with purple highlights like Raven, and we'll get to where the purple highlights come from in a little bit because that's a whole separate thing. But it seems that she has started to dye her hair black, and they actually do say this in the books. Where we find out that the evil queen has been dyeing her hair black is actually a scene in the second Ever After High book by Shannon Hale, which is called The Unfairest of Them All. So for the scene to make sense, I need to do a little plot analysis. So remember how I said there's important plot details that we see in both the show and the books that kind of line up? Like I was saying about the evil queen having platinum blonde hair. Well, a good example of this is the evil queen slowly breaking out of her mirror prison. If you read both the Shannon Hale books and watch like Spring Unsprung, Way to Wonderland, Dragon Games, you see this progression of the evil queen slowly breaking out of her mirror prison, and they actually explain it in this book. And you know, and it's also shown in the show. So you know how in the show, in Way to Wonderland, she's able to knock a book off the shelf? If the mirror prison was working properly, she shouldn't be able to do that. And then in Dragon Games, she's able to get her powers strong enough where she can cause the apple to float, which leads Apple to the mirror, which causes Apple to break her out of the mirror in Dragon Games, right? So there's a scene where Raven can tell that the evil queen has been gaining power because she can tell that the evil queen has been able to somehow get hair dye. So this is the scene in the book. Like her, the evil queen had purple highlights streaking through her black hair, though usually she had a little gray. Now the gray hairs were gone. Surely there was no salon in the mirror prison where she could dye. Okay, so basically it just goes into that all magic is blocked in the mirror prison, so it's suspicious that the evil queen seems to have dyed her gray roots black. What I'm focusing on is the fact that Raven thinks her mom has gray roots, because as we can see, platinum blonde hair looks similar to gray. And it seems to me that Raven thinks her mom's hair was originally black, and then her mom is now dyeing it black because that was originally her hair color. when in actuality, if we look back at the flashbacks of her, her hair was originally platinum. So could it be that the Evil Queen is actually using the black hair dye to cover up the fact that her hair is platinum blonde because she's trying to make herself look like Raven? Because in this scene, it's described how much she looks like Raven, and there's several scenes in the book where it does this, but part of me is wondering if the Evil Queen is purposely using magic to make herself look like Raven, and part of that is dyeing her hair black because Raven doesn't realize that her mom's natural hair color is platinum blonde. She thinks her mom just has gray roots, like, Anyway, so now we're gonna get a little bit into what exactly I think happened. In my old Ever After High Apple and Raven Swapped at Birth Theory YouTube video, I did this whole like deep dive where I used evidence from Monster High, and I was like, oh, maybe it was Wisp who caused them to be swapped at birth. But now I really want to use more concrete evidence from the show, and if we're just looking at Ever After High and not Monster High, like it makes the most sense for the Evil Queen to have swapped Apple and Raven at birth when looking at like the entire theory in retrospect. So now we're gonna get into kind of like how I think magic was involved, how I think the Evil Queen was able to swap Apple and Raven, and why she was able to swap them. So I think the reason she swapped them is because basically it's described in Snow White, like literally I have the Brothers Grimm right here. It's described in Snow White that the Evil Queen just wants to be Snow White. The Evil Queen is obsessed with Snow White. The Evil Queen wants to kill Snow White so she can be the fairest of them all. Basically, all the Evil Queen really wants is Apple's destiny, or the Snow White destiny. So we know that the Evil Queen stole the Storybook of Legends when she was in high school at Ever After High, and she hid it in her dorm room for years. And I think they try to explain this as, oh, she was trying to spill dark magic into other stories. And they kind of explain like, oh, that's why she cursed Wonderland, because she was trying to go over the bounds of her story. However, I don't even think she used the Storybook of Legend to curse Wonderland, because she doesn't even have it when she curses Wonderland. Like, it's still in her dorm. So what I actually think she used the Storybook of Legends for was to swap the powers of Apple and Raven. When people see me talk about this theory, one of the things they always ask me is, if Raven is actually Snow White's daughter, how does she have magic powers? And that's because I think both Raven and the Evil Queen's powers originate from the Storybook of Legends. And when the Evil Queen was in high school, she obviously didn't have a kid yet, but she knew that someday her and Snow White would have daughters to pass their destinies on to. So she purposely messed up the Storybook of Legends so that Snow White's daughter, aka Raven, would get the Evil Queen destiny, and Apple, who is most likely, if we're looking at this theory, the Evil Queen's real daughter, making sure that she would get the Snow White destiny, because that's the destiny that the Evil Queen always wanted and could never have, because the Evil Queen was very jealous of Snow White. So that's why I think she stole the Storybook of Legends. Now, let's explain the purple streaks and the whole thing with the magic. I think both the Evil Queen and Raven's purple streaks come from the magic that was given to them by the Storybook of Legends and their destiny, and I think that's also the reason why they both have purple eyes. In the books and in the specials and the show, it's described multiple times, like how purple is associated with magic. Like whenever the Evil Queen or Raven use magic, we see them glow purple. When Courtly uses the Evil Queen's magic in Way to Wonderland, she also glows purple. Even though this is not specifically related to Raven or the Evil Queen, when the characters are cursed with the Topsy-Turvy spell in Spring Unsprung, their eyes glow purple. I think the reason Raven has the purple streaks and the purple eyes like the Evil Queen, and why that makes her look so much like the Evil Queen, is because that actually comes from the magic and that is not genetic. So now I want to get into like more world building around this theory. Like, how did the other characters react to the fact that Apple and Raven were swapped at birth? I think it's very possible that Snow White, the Brothers Grimm, and Baba Yaga all know about Apple and Raven were being swapped, but there was nothing they could do to stop the Evil Queen. And if they acknowledged that the Evil Queen was able to steal the real Storybook of Legends and swap Apple and Raven at birth, like that would put like the security of Ever After in danger, which is why they covered it up. Think about it. Snow White is has so much stress and puts so much pressure on Apple to follow the Snow White destiny. It's probably because she doesn't want people to find out that she's actually raised the Evil Queen's daughter. Think about how stressed Milton Grimm is with people finding out the real Storybook of Legends is missing. Perhaps because he knows the Evil Queen stole it and used it to swap Apple and Raven's destinies. And again, he doesn't want anybody to find out. Also think about how much pressure he puts on Raven to follow the Evil Queen's destiny. Yet he almost shows no attention to Duchess, who doesn't want to follow her own destiny either. And then there's also Baba Yaga, who tells Apple how disappointed she is in her. And perhaps that's because we know, like, Baba Yaga helped the Grimm brothers to put the Evil Queen into prison, into Mirror Prison, like it says that in the show. So perhaps, like, Baba Yaga tried to swap Apple and Raven's powers back and she couldn't. And that's why she's so disappointed in the fact that Apple has blonde hair but is following the Snow White's destiny. And she just feels like something's wrong. Like, I feel like she knows something that Apple doesn't know, which we'll get into that in a second. And then I mentioned this in my other theory, but the whole thing about Giles Grimm being trapped in the basement and cursed to speak Riddlish, because he allegedly was going to tell people that they didn't have to follow their assigned destinies. Perhaps the real reason he was put in the basement and cursed to speak Riddlish is so he wouldn't tell Apple and Raven that they were swapped at birth, because maybe he was thinking about doing that. And then perhaps when he was released and realized that Raven already rebelled against the Evil Queen destiny and chose not to follow it, he just decided not to say anything. But it really also seems that the Evil Queen was kind of dropping hints towards Apple that they were swapped at birth. And I'm gonna explain that. Actually, it's not in this book, it's in the other book. So in that same scene where Apple and Raven are talking to the Evil Queen in Mirror Prison, and like the Evil Queen, and then Raven notices that the Evil Queen has dyed her hair, the Evil Queen starts to notice something about Apple. So the Evil Queen says, "Are you sure you're Snow White's daughter? Not adopted or anything?" "Mother," said Raven. "Yes, I'm sure," Apple said, pushing a lock of blonde hair behind her ear. So basically, through literary technique, they're telling us that the Evil Queen has noticed Apple's blonde hair and is making Apple question if she's adopted. Perhaps the Evil Queen is trying to plant the seed in Apple's head that she is actually the Evil Queen's daughter, or that her and Raven were swapped at birth. Because that's a little interesting, that even the Evil Queen is calling out Apple's blonde hair. I also just want to mention, before I move on to the next part of the theory, which is looking at all the foreshadowing that happens in Ever After High, that Snow White, according to the Grimm brothers version, is literally supposed to have black hair. This is what it says. "Soon after, she had a little daughter who was white as snow," that's talking about the skin, "red as blood," that's talking about the lips, and her hair was as black as ebony. So it's literally written into the Brothers Grimm that Snow White is supposed to have black hair. So that's just why it's extremely odd that Apple has blonde hair. I just can't stress this enough, and it's also even weirder that the Evil Queen is pointing it out. And also Baba Yaga. Oh, anyway, so now we are going to look at all the bits of foreshadowing that lead me to believe that possibly Apple and Raven were swapped at birth. And now I'm going to explain what, like, I think the foreshadowing is. Like, little clues that the writers have planted within the show that lead us to possibly believe that Apple and Raven were swapped at birth. And I think these little clues are just very simple things that the show writers, the animators, did to possibly leave us clues if the swapped at birth theory was eventually going to be canon. Let's say eventually they made a future special and we're going to be building up to it. So these are just very simple little things that hint that they are swapped at birth. The first, like, prominent example of this is Apple and her mirror. There's a webisode, and it's actually one of the earlier webisodes, where Apple is looking and talking to her magic mirror like she's the Evil Queen. Now, Raven does not have a talking mirror, even though Raven is the daughter of the Evil Queen, and the Evil Queen, like, part of her destiny is to have a magic mirror. But no, Apple's like, "Mirror, mirror on the wall." And again, I'm sorry I can't show you guys the clip, but here's a screenshot from that episode. Then another piece of evidence, a little foreshadowing, is Apple handing Raven an apple in Throne Coming. So there's a scene where Apple is, like, building her parade float for the Throne Coming parade. The whole float is surrounding this apple tree that Apple is supposed to be poisoned from, and she has a basket of apples, and she hands one to Raven, and she's like, basically, she hands it to Raven after she tells Raven she's being selfish, which is a little weird that she hands Raven an apple. But just, like, the action of Apple handing Raven the apple just gives me, like, evil queen to Snow White. So like Raven's Snow White, Apple's the evil queen handing her the apple. Think about that. And then later in the special, they go into that, they go into those big books. I forget what it's called. They go into those big books where they each like go into a different person's destiny, and nobody is supposed to get their own destiny, allegedly. But Raven gets sent into the Snow White destiny, and when she's in there, like the hag, which is the evil queen disguised as the hag, is trying to give Raven the apple, and she's telling Raven to eat the apple, and she's like, "It's your destiny." And I just want to point out, when all the other girls go into those different storybook destinies, nobody else gets yelled at, "This is your destiny." And also remember, the hag trying to hand Raven the apple, which the hag is the evil queen in disguise, mirrors how Apple literally handed Raven an apple a few scenes before. Then also in Throne Coming, when they go into that like special hall again, they each get presents, little memorabilia from their parents, and Milton Grimm replaces Raven's memorabilia with a coin because he wants her to throw it in the well and like wish to see her destiny, or what happens if she doesn't sign the Storybook of Legends. And the whole action of Raven using a wishing well just gives me princess vibes. It just doesn't give me something that the evil queen would do. So that just gives me princess vibes. There's also a scene, and I'll put a picture here, where like Apple has these birds that she normally sings to, but one flies up to like the window and Raven just like pets it gently. Gives me very strong Snow White vibes. I don't know if that's supposed to be foreshadowing, but I thought I'd just put that in there. Now let's talk about the foreshadowing that Apple is the evil queen's daughter that happens in Dragon Games. Because let me tell you, for a while, like there's a lot of clues in the books that Apple is the evil queen's daughter. We see that. There's a lot of clues in Throne Coming. We see that. And then it kind of just goes radio silent. And then Dragon Games comes in, and it's like, it just gives very strong vibes that Apple's the evil queen's daughter. First of all, the evil queen is very easily able to manipulate Apple. She kind of knows what Apple wants. Remember, the thing that the evil queen wants the most is to be like Snow White. And she basically uses like the Snow White destiny. She's like, "Apple, help me. Don't you want to get your destiny? I'll make sure Raven turns evil." Why is she helping Apple out? And there's a scene in Dragon Games where the evil queen comes up to Apple and she's like brushing her hair all creepily. And in The Legend of Shadow High, which The Legend of Shadow High is the crossover book, which was also written by Shannon Hale. I don't have it with me. I rented it from the library like a long time ago. But there's a scene where Raven's like reflecting on how her mom, the evil queen, was not a good mom. And she basically says like, "My mom never helped me brush my hair or anything." Then why is the evil queen helping Apple brush her hair in Dragon Games? Then also throughout Dragon Games, again, the evil queen is bossing Apple around. The evil queen promises Apple, like, "If you help me, I'll make sure you get your destiny," which the evil queen does fulfill that promise. When she poisons Apple, she doesn't try to poison anybody else. She has Fable make sure that Apple gets poisoned. And, like, she doesn't try to poison any of the other girls or any of the other people who are going to try and fight her. She only tries to poison Apple. It seems like she's guaranteeing that Apple gets the Snow White destiny, and she's making sure that if Raven's not going to turn evil, she's going to poison Apple herself so that her real daughter, Apple, can get the fairy tale destiny that she could never have. Boom. Anyway, so now that we've talked about the foreshadowing, I really want to talk about like what the foreshadowing represents with their characters. So I think in both the show and the book, I know Apple calls Raven selfish in that scene in Throne Coming, but Raven's really the one who acts selfless. Like, think about it. When anybody needs anything, like any of the rebels, they go to Raven. Raven helps them. Raven always puts others first. Like, when Cerise has that whole controversy where she's afraid that, like, Kitty is gonna expose that she's actually part wolf, Raven makes sure to help her cover it up. Also, in the book, the plot's slightly different, but, you know, Raven also helps Cerise with her whole family situation. She's just a very good friend. Whereas, like, in the show and in the books, like, Apple is pretty selfish, and Apple doesn't really realize this. And I'm not saying Apple's mean. Like, Apple's still, like, a good friend, but she just usually puts herself first. Like, if people do ask her for something, like, she will help, but, like, it's not her first thought in the head. And there's literally a scene, and I forget what scene it is, but somebody, like, compliments her outfit. Like, they're like, "Oh, Apple, you look so nice today," and she's like, "I know." Like, she literally doesn't even say thank you. I'm like, that's very nice of you, Apple. Anyway, so I just think how they act. Like, Apple really acts like how a traditional evil queen would act. And so much so, she doesn't even realize. Like, she doesn't even know that she's being selfish. And then whereas Raven, I don't think Raven realizes how selfless she's being, but she is very selfless. And I think that could possibly be genetics or just foreshadowing. And I really want to do a whole other video looking at like their character development and their character arcs, and if the swapped at birth theory is true, what that could mean for how they act. Because I know people have criticized me for this theory in the past when I've said like, oh, Apple naturally acts like the evil queen, Raven naturally acts like Snow White. And people have criticized me saying, well, if they just naturally act like their parents, doesn't that disprove the whole plot of Ever After High where everybody can choose their own destiny? And no, I don't think so. I think just because you have a predisposition to act a certain way because of like genetics, I think you can still, at the end of the day, choose your own destiny. So I will do a video about how I think the swapped at birth theory could play in to their character development and how I think it would actually improve. And like really, especially for Apple, I think if she found out that she was the evil queen's daughter, I think it would really fill out her character arc and really like allow her to do a lot of self-reflection. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this. Make sure to like subscribe to this channel. Also, of course, like and comment on this video, but really subscribe if you want to see me do this follow-up video where I look at like their character arcs. It's gonna be called something around like Apple and Raven's character arcs and the swapped at birth theory, and I'm basically gonna like predict what I think their character arcs would have finished off as if we did get a conclusion to Ever After High, because remember, Ever After High was canceled. We never really got a conclusion. So if we would have gotten a conclusion to Ever After High, and if that conclusion would have been the swapped at birth theory, like they would have found out like how that would have fulfilled their character arcs. Anyway, again, also follow me on my other socials. Bye guys. I love you so much, and also Apple and Raven do as well. Bye.